The flagship of the Karth Dominion drifted above the burning human colony, like a carrion bird. Admiral Threx leaned back in his command throne, one clawed hand resting lazily on the armrest, as if this was not a war but a stage play he had watched 100 times before. "Pathetic," he murmured, voice smooth with contempt. Below, fire crawled over the domes and spires of another nameless human settlement. His officers laughed softly, indulging him, none daring to note that this was the 6th colony in as many weeks. "Another sector cleansed, Admiral," one said. Threx tilted his head, watching the orbital strike reduce the main reactor to slag. Civilians ran like insects, small and frantic, though their screams did not reach the cold silence of orbit. The Admiral smirked. One wonders how they spread across so many worlds if this is all they can muster. His second-in-command, a younger officer named Krell, studied the tactical screen. "They resist poorly, sir, but they are persistent. Every colony fights until the last body falls." "Persistence is not power, Krell," Threx replied, amused. "A dying animal still thrashes." Even as the words left his mouth, there was a ripple of unease among the bridge crew. The humans did fight hard, harder than some Dominion vassals had during conquest, but none of it mattered before Dominion firepower. Resistance, in Threx's eyes, meant little without teeth to back it. The operation had grown routine. Locate a human colony, erase its defenses, announce Dominion ownership, move on. The High Council demanded speed, territory, resources, not understanding Threx's boredom or the faint edge of unease that sometimes whispered through his thoughts when he looked at the casualty reports on both sides. Krell approached quietly. "Scouts report another system ahead. Heavily populated. They call it Earth." The name stirred nothing in Threx. Another ball of mud with delusions of civilization. He gave the order, without ceremony. "We burn it too." The fleet surged toward Sol, engines carving bright lines across the void. Threx barely noticed. He was already imagining the next battle. Brief resistance, the usual surrender, Dominion banners planted over alien cities. Except Earth was not as defenseless as expected. The first wave descended fast, cyberwarfare teams striking power grids and comm satellites. Human systems flickered, dimmed, then went dark entirely. So far, predictable. Yet minutes later, Dominion ships reported navigation errors, sensor ghosts, entire squadrons vanishing from comms. "Jamming, sir," Krell reported, though his voice lacked confidence. "Possibly it's planetary countermeasures." Threx frowned. Human colonies never possessed such tech. He ordered the fleet onward. Perhaps Sol defended its throne world better than its children. It would not save them. From the planet below came a single transmission. No screams, no surrender. Just a man's voice, calm, cold, almost disinterested. "This is your only warning. Leave Earth immediately." Laughter rippled across the bridge. Officers repeated the phrase with mock gravity, making bets on how long before the humans begged for mercy. Threx allowed himself a thin smile. Fearless words before inevitable death were almost charming. Yet something in the tone lingered with him, a strange quiet beneath the threat. He dismissed it, focusing on the battle unfolding across 3 dimensions. Dominion troops landed near what humans called New York. Towers loomed like spears of glass and steel, silent. No defense batteries firing. Streets lay empty, traffic frozen mid-motion. The city felt wrong. Reports from ground teams confirmed no resistance, no civilians, nothing at all. Krell approached again, hesitant. "Sir, scans show minimal life signs." As if the city was evacuated. "Then occupation will be simple," Threx replied, though irritation edged his voice. He disliked mysteries. They smelled of traps. Overhead, a Dominion gunship exploded mid-descent. No visible missile, no beam of energy, just a flash and falling debris. Another followed seconds later. The bridge crew froze, scanning wildly. No enemy craft detected. More transports fell. Threx stood slowly, tail lashing once behind him. His voice cut through the rising panic. Identify the source. Nothing. Sensors showed only wind and empty sky. On the streets below, Dominion troops began vanishing. One moment whole squads marched through canyons of glass towers. The next, static filled our comms. Signals went dark and no one returned. Krell's eyes darted across data streams. Sir, losses increasing. Unknown weapons. We can't trace. A third of the landing force disappeared before he finished speaking. Threx stared at the holomap, watching his army dissolve piece by piece. Not in open battle, he could have respected that, but like prey pulled under dark water. Silent, efficient, merciless. The earlier transmission echoed in his mind. Your only warning. He looked out toward the blue-white planet below, the atmosphere shrouding its secrets. For the first time in years, he felt something colder than anger creep into his chest. The humans were not fighting like victims. They were waiting. For what? He could not yet tell. But as the Dominion fleet tightened formation above Earth, as officers scrambled for answers that did not come, Threx understood one thing with sudden, unwelcome clarity. This was no ordinary conquest. The trap had already closed, and he was standing in the center of it. The first human counterattack arrived without sound or warning. Threx stood on the Dominion flagship's bridge, eyes fixed on the tactical display where icons of his landing forces flickered, then vanished entirely. No explosions, no enemy craft on sensors, just sudden absence. One moment his soldiers existed. The next they didn't. His officers scrambled for answers, claws tapping over consoles, voices overlapping in panicked bursts. Krell leaned close, keeping his tone low but urgent. Sir, we've lost another 40% of ground forces. Weapons fire detected only after impact. Nothing registers before the strike. Threx did not move. His expression, always carved from stone, tightened imperceptibly. Find it. Whatever it is, find it. But they didn't. Instead, a new transmission arrived, again from the planet below. The same human voice, the same calm cadence. You should not have come here. For a moment the bridge fell silent, the message lingering like smoke after fire. Then several officers laughed, brittle and forced. One muttered about human theatrics. Another suggested simply burning the entire planet from orbit. Krell did not laugh. Threx's eyes stayed on the planet, watching the patterns of fire where his army had once moved. Something about that voice unsettled him. No fear, no triumph. As if the speaker already knew how this ended. Sir, Krell said carefully, satellite intercepts show the humans dismantled whole cities before our arrival. They didn't flee. They cleared them. Deliberately. A trap. The word coiled in Threx's mind, though he refused to speak it aloud. Deploy all reserve forces, he ordered instead. Crush whatever resistance remains. The command went out. Dropships screamed through the atmosphere. But before they reached the surface, thin spears of light tore through cloud cover. Kinetic projectiles launched from hidden platforms no Dominion scans had detected. Entire squadrons shattered midair, debris raining into the ocean below. On the bridge, one officer whispered what many were thinking. They were ready for us. Threx finally turned from the viewport. Explain. Those platforms, Krell said, voice steady but pale beneath his scales. They weren't built overnight. This was prepared years in advance. Maybe decades. It made no sense. Dominion intelligence had marked humans as fractured, technologically stagnant, still nursing wounds from earlier wars. No reports suggested such capability. Unless the humans had hidden it deliberately. Threx studied the faces of his crew, the cracks appearing in their confidence. He thought of the colonies already conquered, undefended, weak, begging for mercy. Decoys. The realization settled like ice in his gut. The humans had let the Dominion win those early victories. And now every soldier, every ship under his command was inside their net. The human voice returned, this time carrying faint distortion as if coming from multiple sources at once. Leave Earth, or you will not leave at all. Some officers argued to retreat immediately, but others, drunk on past conquests, demanded escalation, planetary bombardment, total annihilation. They did not see what Threx saw: the precision of each human strike, the studied restraint. The enemy revealed only enough strength to terrify, never enough to explain. Krell showed him intercepted data from human networks, fragments of history the Dominion had ignored before. Endless wars across centuries, cities burned, continents shattered, weapons built to end worlds, yet barely restrained. They've fought themselves harder than we've ever fought anyone, Krell murmured. It was true. Footage showed human soldiers in mud-soaked trenches, fighter pilots weaving through nuclear firestorms, cities reduced to ash, while survivors marched onward with dead-eyed determination. War was not new to them. It was their oldest companion. And now that instinct had turned outward. A council meeting was called across the fleet. Holograms of Dominion admirals filled the air, voices clashing, some demanding withdrawal, others swearing no primitive species could threaten an empire spanning half the galaxy. They caught us off guard. One snarled. So what? We return with the full armada. Burn their cradle world to dust. Threx listened, silent. None understood what he now did. The humans were not reacting blindly. This was measured, intentional. Every Dominion escalation would meet an answer waiting in the dark. They want us angry, Threx said finally. His voice cut through the debate. They want us reckless. That's why they're holding back, to make us commit everything. The council dismissed his warning. Orders came for a full planetary assault. The High Dominion never retreated, not from anyone. When the transmission ended, Krell approached slowly. Sir, what if they're right? What if this is a mistake? Threx considered lying, but the younger officer deserved truth. Then the Dominion doesn't understand the war it's already lost. Below, Earth rotated in silence, oceans glinting beneath its clouds. No massive fleets guarded it, no visible defenses ringed its orbit. Yet Dominion forces died by the thousands, cut apart by weapons they could neither see nor predict. A final sensor report reached the bridge. Dozens of human warships rising from hidden launch bays across the moon's surface, sleek and angular, heat signatures cold as ice. Dominion targeting systems struggled to lock on before static consumed the feed. For the first time since taking command years ago, Admiral Threx felt the thin edge of fear sharpen inside his chest. Not for his life, nor even for the fleet above Earth, but for something larger, the sense that history itself had just shifted beneath his feet. He watched those silent human ships climb toward orbit, their formation precise, disciplined, almost ritualistic. No victory cries, no threats, just the slow closing of a steel fist. The Dominion had come to conquer. But somewhere in the dark, humanity had been waiting for this moment, patient as stone. And now the trap was closing. Human warships emerged from the darkness like predators surfacing beneath a school of blind fish. Admiral Threx stood frozen on his command deck as the first salvo struck. No grand beams or fiery detonations, just instantaneous loss. Entire Dominion cruisers winked out on his tactical display before alarms even sounded. Each human strike landed with surgical precision, cutting drives, shredding communications, crippling power systems. It was not a battle. It was an autopsy performed on a living fleet. Krell gripped the rail beside him, eyes wide. Sir, they're dismantling us. Threx could see it too. Not conquest. Disassembly. The humans struck only what mattered, never wasting fire, never striking twice. Dominion ships drifted helplessly, intact yet dead, like animals tranquilized rather than slaughtered. The bridge filled with frantic voices, officers demanding orders, engineers begging for time, captains screaming across collapsing comm channels. Through it all, Threx remained still, jaw tight, rage and realization twisting together inside him. This is impossible, one officer choked out. They can't be this advanced. They are, Threx cut in, voice low. And they've been hiding it for decades. Each second proved him right. Human vessels moved like thought itself, one moment absent from sensors, the next delivering impossible strikes before fading again into silence. Wormhole technology, Krell realized aloud. Short-range jumps so precise Dominion targeting couldn't track them. Entire human squadrons blinking in and out of existence while dismantling the fleet piece by piece. The Council's order for full planetary assault had already failed. Dropships burned in atmosphere, ground forces swallowed by empty cities that became killing fields. Now orbital dominance slipped through Threx's claws like smoke. Another transmission arrived. The same human voice as before, steady as stone. Leave now. This is your final opportunity. It carried no anger, no urgency, only certainty. Some Dominion captains obeyed immediately, breaking formation, engines burning hot for deep space. Others, bound by pride or fear of the Council, fought on. Their deaths came quickly, efficiently, almost mercifully. Krell turned to Threx. If they wanted annihilation, sir, we'd already be gone. The thought had been circling Threx's own mind since the first human strike. This restraint felt colder than any slaughter. The humans were showing power like a blade drawn only halfway, letting its reflection speak the threat aloud. Another feed reached the flagship, Dominion ground troops sending fragmented reports before static devoured them. Entire armored divisions immobilized by precise electromagnetic pulses, weapons dead in soldiers' hands. Then came images of human machines, sleek, angular constructs moving through ruined streets with uncanny coordination, no pilots visible inside. Autonomous warforms, Krell whispered. The Dominion had fought rebellions before. Insurgents hid behind civilians, behind terrain, behind desperation. But humans hid behind nothing at all. They advanced without fear, without haste, as though they already owned the battlefield. Panic spread across the fleet as more captains attempted retreat. The humans let them go. No pursuit, no vengeance. Only the quiet reduction of whatever stayed behind. Threx requested a secure line to the High Council. It connected after long minutes, flickering holograms of imperial ministers demanding explanations he didn't possess. Some shouted to unleash the Doomsday Reserves, weapons forbidden since the early conquests. Others insisted the fleet hold position until reinforcements arrived. Reinforcements would die the same way, Threx told them. He watched their faces twist in disbelief and fury, the same arrogance that had sent him here blind. They could not imagine the Dominion losing, so they imagined the danger unreal instead. His warnings fell against the same walls of pride and tradition that had built this empire from conquest, and would bury it the same way. When the transmission ended, Krell approached cautiously. "Orders, sir?" For a moment Threx said nothing. He thought of the colonies they had burned, the cities reduced to ash under his command. He had believed history favored the Dominion simply because it always had. Yet history was turning now, slow and merciless, and he felt himself sliding beneath it. "Signal withdrawal," Threx said at last. The words tasted like iron. Before the order spread, the humans moved again. Not against the retreating ships, but deeper into Dominion territory. Wormhole signatures flared across dozens of sectors simultaneously. Prepositioned fleets, Krell realized with growing horror. The humans hadn't just prepared Earth's defense. They had prepared the counterattack before the war even began. Reports arrived in fragments. Dominion shipyards gone dark, fuel depots erased, communication hubs seized intact. Entire sectors cut off from each other before they understood war had reached them. "This isn't retaliation," Krell said quietly. "It's conquest." Threx almost corrected him. Humans showed no interest in Dominion civilians, no interest in ruling alien worlds. Yet everywhere they advanced, infrastructure fell under their control rather than destruction. Transport networks restored under human command. Trade routes reopened under human oversight. As though they were not burning the Dominion down but hollowing it out, preparing something new inside its shell. On the bridge, officers stared at their consoles as reports grew worse by the minute. Every instinct screamed to fight back, yet each counterattack collapsed before it began. Predictions met before decisions were even made. Threx watched it all unfold, expression carved from exhaustion rather than anger now. He had wanted glory once, reputation, victories carved across star maps. Yet as the Dominion cracked around him, none of it mattered beside the quiet efficiency dismantling everything he served. Humanity had spent centuries tearing itself apart. Now that same relentless perfection turned outward, cold and impersonal as gravity. As the fleet limped toward retreat vectors, Threx studied the planet below one last time. Cities still burned where Dominion weapons had fallen earlier. Smoke drifted across oceans, reflecting the pale sun. Yet no celebration rose from the surface, no vengeful broadcasts, no human voices demanding surrender. They simply advanced, silent, methodical, unstoppable. And for the first time since the war began, Threx wondered if the Dominion had already ceased to exist, only waiting now for someone to make it official. Smoke curled above the Dominion capital as Admiral Threx's crippled flagship descended through the atmosphere under human escort. The skies, once alive with the traffic of Empire, now lay eerily clear. Human vessels hung in the upper atmosphere, silent sentinels watching everything below. No one fired on them. No one even tried. Dominion defenses sat dead across the planet, their power grid severed in a single night when human code ghosts slipped through every firewall like whispers through an unlocked door. Threx stood at the viewport, hands clasped tight behind his back. The city spread beneath him, familiar streets and towers carrying the weight of his entire life service. Now, they belonged to someone else. It felt wrong to see them intact. The humans hadn't bombed the capital, hadn't reduced it to rubble the way Dominion fleets had done to human colonies weeks ago. They'd taken it whole, the way a surgeon takes a beating heart from a dying body and places it in another. Krell stood beside him, silent until the landing gear touched down. Sir, civilian riots in 3 sectors. Food distribution failing. Half the council fled off-world before blockades sealed the lanes. And the other half? Threx asked, though he already knew. Krell's jaw flexed. Waiting for human terms. Terms. Not negotiations. Not even surrender. The humans didn't ask anything, they simply arrived with instructions. Dominion forces that complied were left alone. Those who resisted vanished beneath precise strikes, the kind that left surrounding buildings untouched while cutting a single tower from the skyline like it had never existed. Threx stepped from the shuttle into a city square-lined with human soldiers. They didn't cheer, didn't posture, didn't even look at the Dominion crowds gathering behind barricades. Their movements were disciplined, machine-like, faces unreadable beneath dark visors. No cruelty, no arrogance, just the unnerving calm of people who didn't need anyone to fear them to stay in control. At the square's center waited a single figure, the human admiral whose voice had haunted every transmission since Earth. He wore no medals, no bright uniform, only plain black armor marked with a simple crest, a circle fractured by a single downward stroke, like a planet split by light. Threx approached, each step echoing across stone grown far too quiet. So, he said, keeping his voice steady, do we call this occupation or conquest? The human studied him with the same calm tone that had carried every ultimatum so far. Neither. Governance. We don't want your worlds. Only order. And if we refuse order? The Admiral glanced at the silent ships above, then back at Threx. You've seen what refusal earns. For a long moment, the wind carried only the sound of banners snapping high along the government halls. Dominion colors still hung there, though Threx suspected even the counselors inside now served a different master entirely. You dismantled an empire in a month, Threx said finally. And you don't even want it? The human's gaze didn't waver. We wanted the killing to stop. The rest follows because someone has to keep you from starting again. Threx almost laughed. Not at humor, but at the bitter simplicity of it. All the fleets, the politics, the centuries of conquest. And in the end, the Dominion wasn't even hated enough to be conquered properly. Just managed like a child caught playing with knives. Krell arrived with datapads carrying the humans' terms. No looting, no forced labor, no mass executions. Dominion systems would keep their governments under human oversight. Infrastructure rebuilt under human technology. Trade restored under human regulation. It was mercy shaped like a collar. Some counselors argued for rebellion anyway. Threx watched them leave meetings pale-faced, their escorts whispering about precision strikes cutting off entire rebellions before the first speech ended. The humans seemed to know every plan before it reached breath. In private moments, Threx studied reports from the frontiers. Dominion fleets surrendering intact, outposts switching allegiance, without a single shot. Whole populations accepting human control simply because resistance never lasted longer than a heartbeat. Fear played its part, but something heavier hung behind it, certainty. Everyone understood the Dominion hadn't lost a war. It had been outgrown. One evening, Krull joined him overlooking the city where human patrols moved through streets once guarded by Dominion banners. "Do you think they'll stay forever?" the younger officer asked. Threx considered the question. "I think they'll stay until no one remembers how to fight them. After that, maybe they won't need to." When the final council surrender came, it carried no speeches, no ceremony. Dominion ministers signed human directives with hands that barely stopped shaking. No one called it peace. No one dared call it war. It simply ended. Days later, Threx received an offer. Governor of 3 core systems, under human supervision, responsible for rebuilding what remained of the Dominion fleet into a defense force, not for Empire, but for something new the humans called the Accord. "You want me to serve you?" Threx said when the human admiral delivered the message himself. "I want you to serve stability," the man replied. "Empires fall. Orders endure. And if I refuse?" The human looked out the window where another Dominion destroyer hung dead in orbit after trying to break blockade. "Don't." Threx accepted. Not from fear, though it lingered beneath his ribs like old poison, but from the strange relief of finally obeying someone who seemed to know where everything led. Weeks passed. Human engineers restored power grids faster than Dominion crews had ever managed. Trade convoys resumed under human escort, pirates vanishing wherever those black warships appeared. No one called the humans liberators. No one called them conquerors either. They called them law. Threx met the Admiral one final time before departing to his new post. "You could have burned us all," he said. The man nodded once. "We could have." "Why didn't you?" "Because ashes don't listen," the humans said simply. Threx left the capital with Dominion banners still flying beside the new Accord emblem. People along the streets watched the skies where human carriers drifted like winter clouds, their shadows covering everything. Children pointed at them the way older generations once pointed at Dominion fleets with pride. Far above, construction already began on something larger. Orbital rings spanning continents. Defense platforms pointed not inward toward rebellious colonies, but outward toward the silent stars beyond known space. For all their restraint, the humans were preparing for something bigger than conquest. Krull voiced it one night aboard their shuttle. "Do you think they're afraid of what's out there?" Threx remembered the human admiral's eyes, calm, cold, measuring centuries rather than battles. "No," he said softly. "I think they're preparing to make everything else afraid." Months later, when the first human patrol fleets crossed the old Dominion borders into unclaimed systems, no one challenged them. Trade followed in their wake. Law followed trade. And beyond the frontier, rumors began among distant civilizations about the fall of the Dominion and the new power rising from humanity's long silence. No one called it empire yet, but everyone waited for the day they would.